You're listening to Channel Kindness Radio.
Hello and welcome to Channel Kindness Radio. My name is Laurent Jan, my pronouns are he, him and his, and I'm a member of Born This Way Foundation's Advisory Board. I'm so excited to be joined today by fellow Advisory Board member Colyn. Colyn, would you please introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Colyn. I use he, him, his pronouns, and it's great to be here with you today, Laurent Jan.
This episode of Channel Kindness Radio is part of a series of interviews between members of Born This Way Foundation's Advisory Board. In our conversation today, we want to talk about how both academic institutions can support mental health of their students and the ways that physical health is connected to mental health. So, Colyn, I want to learn from you about mind-body connections related to the outdoors. I've heard you do some traveling from time to time, and I wonder how hiking or getting that physical activity outside has impacted your mental health. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Of course. So I started hiking actually in high school, and it simply started with just a few friends wanting to go out and just do some things in the local area just to have fun. I actually realized the connection to mental health and hiking, or really physical activity, when I traveled to Oregon with a few friends. I found it really relaxing to unplug with social media and online and focus on where you're going. I think this is a concept that is very important to mental health, right? Sometimes we get stuck in worrying about what other people are doing or comparing to other people. But this concept of when you're going hiking, it's focusing on where you're going. So I kind of apply that to myself by saying where am I going at this time? Not worrying about person A or B, but where am I going? And that's the way that I found the connection between mental health, because I was also able to, escape my reality by not focusing on other things that are going on and just focusing on finding the right way to go on the trail. And my most memorable moment, I think, doing this would be at Tamalish Falls, also known as the Blue Pool in Oregon. Me and my friends were just hiking, and there's this big pool of water that is just very blue and crystal clear. And I realized we were focusing on trying to find the blue pool and also paying attention to how are we going to get back. And so it kind of takes you out of, the reality of life, and you're just focused on the trail. Those are the ways that I usually engage in mental wellness for myself. But before this, I usually just played my violin, and that would be my escape. But I would say hiking is the way that I'm able to connect with friends and as a group improve mental wellness. So, Laurent Jan, for those who don't like hiking, what are some ways we can use physical exercise to improve our mental health?
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that, Colyn. That is really inspiring to hear. And I completely agree with you. Mental health and physical health go hand in hand. And I think to basically all of us, the pandemic has taken a toll of us in some way. So, speaking from my own experience, it was incredibly hard to find enough dedication or willingness to do physical exercises because of all the lockdowns or other COVID restrictions that we've been through here in the Netherlands. So basically, most of the times I was spending indoors and just at my home office. And I noticed that this was not good for me. I was sitting in a wrong position, or I was on the couch. So one day I said, I can't do this much longer, because I noticed that I had more bad days than good days, and I noticed that my body was more tense. I had more back pains. So I actually contacted my friend from the Philippines one day, and I told him, I really want to start doing exercises again, but I can't bring up the energy to do it all by myself. So can we please do it together? Would you be willing to help me with that? And he was actually very excited about this, and he was more than willing to help me with that. So we were in contact every day to discuss a good time when to do it, because we are more than 10,000 kilometers apart, and also many time zones. So there were some scheduling difficulties, but we always managed to do it, actually. And by doing this together, I felt this sense of accountability. So whenever I felt like I don't want to do it today, my friend would say, okay, we are going to do this because you will feel better after we have done it. And he was right. And now we have done it for multiple months already. I actually feel the energy and dedication by myself now. So we are not doing it all the times together anymore. And in this way, I actually managed to find the energy by myself and start doing these exercises when it suits me at a better time, for example. So, Colyn, there are many ways in which we can support our mental wellness. And I want to talk to you about some of the ways that outside groups, like schools or universities, can also support young people's mental health. So, I would love to hear from you about how academic institutions in your area support students' mental health.
Thank you for your wonderful response. Like, I do agree, like, we both made that connection between the physical health and mental health. But one way, so let me start by this. Like, my school is the University of Nevada, Reno, and it offers short-term and intermediate model to counseling services for people who take 6 or more college credits. And so they offer 4 different types of counseling. The first one is individual counseling, one with a counselor. Another is group therapy. So you're able to work with your academic peers on a set goal for your mental wellness. Third is urgent care. So if you're just like, wow, I'm in a crisis, I need to speak to someone, you can do that through Monday through Friday with a same day appointment. And then lastly, they offer psychological testing for like ADHD and different learning disabilities. One thing that I noticed in secondary education and across the United States is the force to incorporate social and emotional learning is one of the strategies used to support young people's mental health. As you mentioned, Lawrence John, some of the concerns of stress came from COVID, right? And this is similar to what many of the educators, not only in Nevada, but in the United States, and maybe you can even speak to in the Netherlands, that the teachers are experiencing students who are having these severe mental health behaviors because of the pandemic. And so that is what SEL is kind of like designed to do, to teach students how to regulate their emotions. And it focuses on 5 components, which is self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Lawrence John, we are on completely different sides of the world, and I'm curious as to what has been your experience in the Netherlands.
That's so great to hear, Colyn, that there is some sort of program in place to teach students on how to properly regulate their emotions and through stressful times. And in terms of from my point of view, there's still a lot to gain on this topic in the Netherlands. In a recent study that was conducted by the Dutch government, it was actually concluded that 97% of students experience stress. This is caused by a variety of reasons, of which COVID is of course one of them. Even though this is already the first step, recognizing that there is a problem and acknowledging that there is a need for resources and possibilities for students to improve their own mental well-being. Because if this identified problem remains untreated, this stress among students can manifest itself in many ways, including a poor mental health. And actually recently an eye-opening research paper was published by Born This Way Foundation in collaboration with Mary Christie Institute on Mental Health Peer Support. This is something that I believe to be an opportunity to pursue. From my own experience, I noticed that there were always fellow students or faculty members that I could reach out to. So the willingness to help was always present. Although I must say that the help that I received was not every time the help that I needed at that exact moment. Or I could sense that I was burdening my friends because they already had enough on their own plates with their academic responsibilities. Therefore, the vital part of it is that these students and staff receive the appropriate trainings on how to help these students. Next to that, these peers will also understand how to effectively provide support to others while keeping their own mental health safe. So I would definitely encourage students and universities to invest time and allocate resources to build a strong and structured peer-to-peer mental health support network in their local communities. What's one thing you are going to do today to support your mental health, Colyn?
Today, to support my mental health, I will exercise. I will go to the gym, make sure I get proper exercise. And I will also make sure that I set clear boundaries and making sure that I put myself first and my mental health first. How about you, Laurent John?
That's great to hear. And as we already discussed earlier, exercise is so important for our mental health. And what I also find very important to support my own mental health is eating nutritious food. I think I started with that only recently, maybe less than a year ago, actually. I started to get rid of all the junk food. So I'm actually trying to be more mindful about what I eat and what I put into my body, because I know some things are just not good for me. I am drinking water only, and this evening, to support my own mental health and physical health, I'm going to cook my grandmother and myself a nice, nutritious meal with a lot of vegetables.
That's great to hear that you are using the food that you eat to support your mental wellness. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm glad to share the same of our stories and learn from each other. Laurent John, thank you so much for joining me today for this conversation. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. For more stories about kindness and bravery, go to channelkindness.org or follow us on social media at Channel Kindness. Thank you.
You're listening to Channel Kindness Radio.